Hi everybody, good morning again. Let's see, by the clock in back of me there, it's about 20 after 7, or 20 after 8, 25 past 8. And hello everybody. Again, we're going to read another chapter of the dear old Briar Patch, and chapter 11 this time. And this one is Peter chases butterflies. There's a picture. So we'll see what happens with that. Flutter, flutter, flitter, flew the butterflies just outside the dear old briar patch. Lippity, lippity, lip, ran Peter after them. Just as he would almost catch up with one, away it would go in another direction. Flutter, flutter, flutter. It was tantalizing. That is what it was, tantalizing. At last, tired, hot, discouraged, he sat down at the edge of the old briar patch. "What in the world have you been chasing those butterflies for?" asked Mrs. Peter. "I want the smell of them," replied Peter. "Smell of them? What for?" cried Mrs. Peter. "Busy Bee says some butterflies are perfumed," explained Peter. "I don't believe it," declared Mrs. Peter. "Neither do I, but I want to make sure," replied Peter. Just then he saw a butterfly resting on a flower. He was tempted to run over there as fast as he could before that butterfly should fly away. Just in time, he used his head. "I do believe I have been frightening those butterflies by racing after them. I'll try to steal up to this one," said he to himself. Slowly, carefully, he crept through the grass. And there's a picture of him doing that. You can see the butterfly in the air, and there's Peter trying to sneak up on him. I don't think it'll work, do you? We'll see. He drew nearer and nearer. Presently, his wobbly little nose began to wobble as only it can. He was smelling for perfume. He didn't expect there would be any. He was quite sure there would be. Slowly, he leaned forward until that funny wobbly little nose almost touched the butterfly. Suddenly, Peter kicked up his long heels and, of course, frightened the butterfly. "Why-ee! That butterfly smells sweet as sweet can be," he cried. And he sounded as if he had hardly believed what he was saying. Away went Peter, lippity-lippity-lip, after that butterfly, just to make sure he wasn't mistaken. Away went the butterfly, flitter, 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 and he couldn't catch up. He sat down to watch. Soon he saw another butterfly on a flower. Again, he succeeded in getting his nose close enough to sniff. There was no perfume, no smell at all. He was more disappointed than surprised. It must be that other butterfly had visited a sweet flower and brought away some of the perfume. "That must be it," said he aloud. "Buzz! Nothing of the sort, Peter Rabbit. Nothing of the sort," said someone right in one of his long ears. It was Busy Bee. "Butterflies don't take perfume from flowers," he added. She added. "Then why should one smell so sweet and the other not smell at all?" demanded Peter. "Why does one flower have a pleasant smell and another none at all? It's because Mother Nature made them that way. Butterflies with perfume do not get it from flowers. It is all their own, even though it smells like that of flowers. Different kinds smell differently. Did you see the butterfly over there?" buzzed Busy Bee. Peter nodded. "Yes." "Well, go over and smell of that one," said Busy Bee. Peter stole over and sniffed. It was another sweet-smelling butterfly of a different kind than the first one, and with a different perfume. After that, Peter Rabbit had a lot of fun chasing butterflies. Then, when they stopped on flowers, creeping up to smell of them. One day, Busy Bee stopped at a flower close to Peter. Before going in after its sweetness with which to make honey, she asked Peter a surprising question. Anyway, it was surprising to him. "Have you ever listened to a butterfly?" she asked. "What's that?" cried Peter, not sure he had heard right. "I asked if you have ever listened to a butterfly," buzzed Busy Bee a bit sharply. "Don't ask silly questions. Of course I haven't. Butterflies can't be heard. They don't make a sound," retorted Peter. "How little some folks know," buzzed Busy Bee, as if talking to herself. "Ever since I learned to know a clover blossom from a buttercup, I have known one butterfly who speaks. Peter's long ears suddenly stood up straight and wide open. Not really, he cried. Busy Bee paid no attention to Peter. She had gone head first into the throat of that flower to get its nectar for honey and to fill the baskets on her hind legs with the fine golden dust called pollen. Then she backed out and flew away. Oh dear, muttered Peter. Now I suppose I will have to run around listening to different butterflies to find the one that squeaks. So once more, Peter was running about on the green meadows, lippity-lippity-lip, chasing butterflies. As soon as one stopped on a flower, Peter stopped running and crept forward slowly and carefully. When he was close, he stopped to listen. He listened the best he knew how, but all his listening was in vain. Not one of them hummed or buzzed or squeaked. There was no sound of any kind. He asked folks he met if they had ever heard a butterfly squeak or make any other sound. They laughed at him. Yes, sir, they laughed at him. That didn't make him feel good, you may be sure. His chasing of butterflies to listen to them became a joke among all his friends of the green meadows and the old pasture, even some of those in the old orchard and the green forest. When they met him, they would say, "How are the squeaky butterflies today, Peter?" And all Peter could do was winkle up his nose at them and say, "If there's a squeaky butterfly, I'll find it." Somehow, either by chance or purposefully, Busy Bee never came near him for the longest time. Then one day, he caught up with her on a spray of goldenrod. Yeah, bees like goldenrod. Busy Bee, I don't like to think you have told me a wrong story, but I simply have to, said Peter severely. Bzzz, are you telling me that you think I didn't tell you the truth? Demanded Busy Bee. He began to hum angrily. It was a most unpleasant sound. What I mean is, I think you were mistaken, said Peter hastily. In what way? Buzzed Busy Bee. You told me that some butterflies make noises, that you have known one who squeaks. I don't believe it. I mean, I think you are mistaken. I have listened and listened to big butterflies, little butterflies, all kinds of butterflies, and not a squeak or any other sound have I heard, declared Peter. Do you mean to tell me that you haven't found one who squeaks? Exclaimed Busy Bee as if she couldn't believe it. I haven't heard one, and I don't expect to hear one. I don't believe there is one, declared Peter flatly. Have you ever seen a butterfly in the middle of winter? Asked Busy Bee. Yes, admitted Peter. I've seen Morning Cloak out in the sun on a warm day in winter, the only butterfly that lives through winter. But what has that to do with a squeaky butterfly? That's the one, said Busy Bee mildly, and buzzed over to another flower. Peter hurried after her. Say that again, he cried. I said that Morning Cloak is the butterfly who squeaks, replied Busy Bee, and hummed off home to her hive. Peter didn't even watch her go. He was off, lippity-lippity-lip, for the Smiling Pool. He remembered that he often had seen Morning Cloak among some willows near there. When he reached the willows, he began to look about among them for a butterfly dressed in black with a light border and spots of blue near the edges of the wings. That would be Morning Cloak. He saw none, so he sat down to wait and watch. Waiting and watching is sleepy business. Peter dozed. He took a little nap. When at last he opened his eyes, there was Morning Cloak on a twig so close that he could have reached out and touched that butterfly. Peter blinked, for he was not yet fully awake. But suddenly he was awake, very wide awake. He had heard a tiny squeak. He listened and heard it again. There was no doubt about it. It was a sure enough squeak. It had come right from Morning Cloak. Peter was so excited, he jumped right up in the air and kicked his long heels together. This frightened Morning Cloak away before there was time to ask how that squeaking sound was made. And to this day, Peter doesn't know. But he does know that he heard that squeak. There's nothing wrong with his ears. If he could speak to you, I know he would tell you that there is a butterfly who squeaks. He would be right. There is. And that's the end of that chapter. And we'll read again next time. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.